Hello and welcome. My name is Andrew, and this is the Who Dat Discussion, a New Orleans Saints podcast where we talk about all Saints news, opinions, and reactions. So I think we should just get right into some Saints Bucs talk as the Saints clinch the NFC South. They are your 2018 NFC South champions, and to me, look, that's one check mark for the whole, checklist, which is at the end of it, it's to win the Super Bowl. And this is a big hurdle that we passed to get there. The Saints did get the win, as basically all Saints fans know at this point, 28-14. It was a tale of two halves, and I think we'll get into that later. But I just wanted to say, you got to give it to this whole team for bouncing back in that second half, getting the win, and just that locker room celebration after. Just really good stuff. I just want to get right into this talk because, every Saints fan's really happy today. Also, the Rams lost, so now the Saints are the number one seed in the NFC. So you're just really love to see that stuff right now. Saints are playing good ball. I think there was a little transition period from getting back to where they needed to be, but I think that second half shows that they are back. First half, obviously, they had a lot of trouble, and we'll get into that. But first, we're going to start off with some notes. And obviously, the biggest note here is that the Saints clinched the playoff berth and the NFC South Championship. That celebration after, as I said before, really great. Everyone was dancing. They have Choppa Style playing, which I think is now the team's, anthem, their song, the go-to song that they go to. Just a lot of really good stuff. Drew Brees was getting into it. Sean Payton was passing out all the stuff. And this contrasts last year a lot, because last year they did clinch the NFC South, but it was in a loss. So, even though they did have all the hats and shirts, but they weren't really smiling or anything. And now, obviously, this year, smiling, dancing, a lot of fun stuff. And they did a really good job. You got to give it to, the Saints for getting this whole thing done. Because obviously, last game against the Bucs, it wasn't their best game shown, but they drilled it out, got the win. And that's what a lot of NFL teams do. Not every NFL team goes on, the road and wins 48-10 or, 48-7. This doesn't happen that much. And look, the Saints grinded it out, didn't have a good first half, but came back, had a very, very solid second half, and got the win. So I really like to see that. Our next note is that Michael Thomas now has the most catches through 3 years in the NFL. That's another really good, milestone for Michael Thomas, who's probably on his way to his second Pro Bowl appearance. Love to see that. Congratulations to Mike Thomas. 25 unanswered points after the Taysom Hill block punt definitely drove this team to the win. It seemed like, that Taysom Hill play got the Saints going. First, they gave him a short field. After that, they were able to run the ball, which you wouldn't think that, the Saints' key is to run the ball. Usually everyone's thinking, Drew Brees, Sean Payton, they love to pass, Mike Thomas. But it is to run the ball, and we saw that. And the huge contrast between the first half and the second half is that Saints going to run the ball in the first half. They had negative yards. Came back in the second half. I believe they were about 105 yards in 1.5. That's really good. And then they just pounded the rock. They used play action. Brees was phenomenal in the second half. Really was a tale of two halves for this whole team. So I think that was really good there. And 25 straight points is a lot of points. So you got to give it to the Saints there. Another note is that Sean Payton, to me, he stood, being cocky, being competitive like he is. He went for it for two. I think that was a really good thing. Really had trust in his team. He went for it. So a lot of good calls. It started to work again. That thing that Sean Payton loves to do. Go for it. Be cocky. Be a little more risky, and it worked. So you got to give it back, and you got to give it to Sean Payton because he coached a really good game. Because I think he did a really good job there. Also, now Cam Jordan and Sheldon Rankins have now combined for 20 sacks on the left side. Cameron Jordan with 12, Sheldon Rankins with 8, and just look, these guys can play. They flat out play. They both should be Pro Bowlers for sure. Sheldon Rankins has not got enough love in the whole league, but what he's able to do, and also he had a pass deflection in the fourth quarter. It looked like he was a linebacker out there, and he's 300 pounds deflecting passes. I thought he almost came down with a pick there. Just really good stuff for him. He's playing really good ball. And Cameron Jordan, he's just the heartbeat of this defense. And look, if they're going to give him one-on-one opportunities, in the middle of the year, he had a great start of the year. Middle of the year was kind of a little low for him because they started to double, even triple team him. And now he's getting those one-on-one matchups again because Sheldon Rankins is winning. You have Marcus Davenport coming on. Alex Okafor's coming on. Also up the middle, David Onyemata had a couple of pressures. Same with Tyler Davidson, So really good play out of a full offensive line is giving Cam Jordan a lot more one-on-one opportunities, and he's so good. He's going to get that every single time. So to me, very good for him. And our last note is now the Saints finish 1-1 versus the Buccaneers, bouncing back after their Week 1 loss. That transitioned us really well into our storylines. This week, I added 2 because there were a couple of surprises in this game, so had to get that also in our storyline. So our first storyline from our preview was, will the Saints be able to bounce back? Kind of a revenge game because not only did they lose the game before this, they also lost to the Bucs in their other lost first game of the year. And to me, it took them time to bounce back. It did. The first half, the Bucs tried to do very similar things that the Cowboys did. They tried to get pressure up the middle, which it was working, and they were getting pressure. They also were getting pressure with Jason Pierre-Paul. They did what they needed to do. They stopped the run, like the Cowboys tried to do, gave the Saints 3rd and longs, and they were stopping them. It was working. They stopped everyone but Michael Thomas. So, I mean, look, they could have Michael Thomas have a big game if it means everyone else not getting and scoring anything. So that was good for the Bucs, but that completely changed in the second half, and you have to think why. Why were the Saints so successful in the second half, and they were able to bounce back really well? So Sean Payton, he just said that, they were getting opportunities in the first half. They just couldn't convert. In the second half, they were able to convert. And look, that's what it really came down to. I think the offensive line played much better in the second half. They gave Brees time to throw. They opened up holes in the running game. And that's what you want to see. Really, the offensive line played just as good as they always did in the games past in that second half. They did a really good job. You also got to give it to Mark Ingram, who had a couple of really angry runs, and that touchdown run was just amazing. He's dragging a guy about 5 yards on the ground. That's what you want to see from him. Kamara came on late, was able to really close out the game. He had a couple of nice end-around runs. All in all, the Saints were able to bounce back. To me, look, the defense played really good throughout, and they kept on their positive mojo, positive momentum, whatever you want to say. They played really good, and the offense, to me, bounced back in the second half. So it took them a little time to get back. But right after that Taysom Hill block punt, they were locked in. They felt like that was their chance, and then they capitalized on it. So that's a really good job by our offense. And if this was a revenge game, to me, I just don't really see it as I really didn't see it as a revenge game once the game started. Coming up to the game, I was like, we're going to get some revenge on the Bucs, but it didn't feel like the Saints felt that way. It seems like they just wanted to take care of business and win the NFC South. That was their goal. And, especially listening to the commentators, they were like, the Saints really need this bye. They really want a 1 seed. Sean Payton says they want a 1 seed. They want the bye. They feel like it's pivotal to them, going all the way. And now I think Sean Payton was preaching that this was just one step forward to that bye, to the number 1 overall seed. So to me, yeah, it could be called as a revenge game, but I think it was more just one step in the right direction, and I think they accomplished that. They did a pretty good job there. On to our next storyline is, will the Saints be able to get turnovers? And it's kind of funny. The Saints defense played really good. They stopped Jameis Winston and company to only 14 points, and 1 touchdown drive was a condensed drive, very short drive because of a turnover by Drew Brees. But to me, they didn't get any turnovers. Not like to me. They didn't get any turnovers. That's what happened in the game. They got a lot of sacks, though. So it helped. They really stopped them in yardage. They kind of beat the Bucs at their own game. They didn't need turnovers because they were stopping them in the yards department. Take out Jameis Winston's couple of scrambles. The Saints did really good against the rush. And then against the pass, up to that final drive where it was a garbage drive, we only gave up about 160 passing yards. So, look, the numbers look better for the Bucs because they were a little inflated. But to me, really good job. Actually, we did have 1 turnover, so excuse me for saying we had none. We did have 1 at the end of the game by Lattimore's the last play of the game, or second to last play of the game. So, look, that 1 turnover, garbage turnover. You got to give it to Lattimore, though. It's besides a pick, because that was a really good pick, by the way, keeping the feet in and everything. That was just a really nice play, textbook. But he did really good on Mike Evans. You got to give it to Lattimore. Really, after that 1 long catch that Mike Evans had, he gave up nothing the rest of the way. So I think Lattimore's back to where he should be. I think he knows that. Mike Thomas said that this was a big game for Lattimore. He was treating it like a really big game, and he came through in a big way because he felt like he was embarrassed in the week 1, so he really came back, had a really nice game there. But really, look, usually the Saints have been getting more fumbles, and for this game, just the 1 pick, that's really it. Happened at the end of the game. A lot of the game, the Saints were losing, so they really didn't have the chance for turnovers. They did have the Taysom Hill block punt, which is kind of like a turnover, but I mean, it changed the field. To me, it changed all the momentum, so maybe you call that a turnover. But look, the Bucs have been giving up 3-4 turnovers a game, and they kept the ball this game, but they couldn't move down the field. They couldn't get the yards like they usually do. So to me, it was kind of like, look, you obviously take that, not giving up a lot of yards, a lot of punts. So that's just really good job by the Saints defense, even though they didn't get a lot of turnovers. Our next storyline is, will Breeze and the O-line get back on track? And to me, first half, they did not. It was just compile issue after issue, problem after problem. The O-line, they weren't even doing that bad in the pass blocking. It was the run blocking. They couldn't give any holes for Ingram or Kamara. A lot of stacked boxes. The Bucs tried to keep Kamara and Ingram, out of the game, and they were successful at that. They kind of tried Breeze to beat that. And for them, it kind of worked for a little bit. But to me, the Saints are moving the ball down the field, but they couldn't make that big play. A couple of turnovers, sloppy play, and that's why they couldn't, have sustained drives. So they couldn't get anything done. To me, Breeze, I think he played all right, not amazing. He played about average when he's, kind of accustomed to playing. He's not going to put the yards. He had a couple of turnovers. Did have a cool rushing touchdown. Not cool rushing touchdown, but, his patented play over the top. He always does that. A big rushing touchdown. Gave us the lead. He had a, good pass to Zach Line for another touchdown. But all in all, looking at not an MVP performance for Breeze. And people are saying that, Breeze is getting, lapped by Mahomes in the MVP race. And to me, I think they're around tied. I think maybe even Breeze still has the edge. Mahomes didn't play very good last game either. I know they won, but they just got away by the skin of their teeth against Baltimore at home. So to me, I don't know how much better Mahomes really played yesterday than Breeze. They played, not so good in different ways. Mahomes did have a lot of still flashy plays and brought them back to a victory, but he put them in a hole. So to me, it was kind of a washout for both, and I think they're about tied. Maybe Breeze has a little edge there, but to me, you got to give it to Breeze in the second half, who was just really, really good. Looking at his stats, nothing amazing, nothing really awful. He was 24 of 31, 201 yards, the touchdown, the pick, and then he also had a fumble, and he had a rushing touchdown. So a lot for him, but the Saints were able to get it done. I think he played a really good second half. I don't think he missed a pass, or maybe he missed like one pass in the second half. So to me, really good job by the Saints, really good job by Sean Payton to put Drew Brees in a good spot in this game, maybe like he didn't last game. To me, in the first half, it was kind of like the opposite of the Cowboys game. They were getting a little too predictable. In the second half, they really found their way and had a solid second half, a really good second half. Look, 3 touchdowns, 25 points. That's what you want to see. Now on to our next storyline, and is the running game vital to the Saints? And if they don't run the ball, will they be able to still be successful? And to me, it's starting to be like maybe it's not, because the Saints, obviously, in the first half, it was kind of like a full debacle. When you have negative rushing yards, it's not even having a bad rushing attack. That's like the worst, because you're having negative. You can't even move the ball forward. So what the Saints were able to do in the second half, obviously much better. They were able to control the line of scrimmage. They were able to do a lot of better stuff, especially able to really disguise runs more, getting a little more flashy, had some nice plays to Kamara in the end arounds. Ingram had some nice runs, a couple of pitch plays. That's what you want to see. Sometimes dives right up the middle is not the best option, and I think the Saints in the second half really were able to switch that off. But the running game, to me, more than ever with Drew Brees, Sean Payton teams, I think it's very vital because they don't have that mmany weapons, especially through the air. So when you're looking at it, you have Kamara, Ingram, and Thomas. And after that, there's a huge dip. So, you want to say Ben Watson, or you want to say Traquan Smith, Keith Kirkwood, and those guys. They're not bad, but to me, they're going to get stopped probably one-on-one. And if the Saints need to be successful through the pass game 70, 80% of the time of a game, so if they only can run the ball 20% of the time, they will not be successful, because you're asking Michael Thomas to either get open a ton, or you're asking Traquan Smith, Keith Kirkwood to win one-on-one matchups, and they just haven't this year. So obviously you could put Kamara out wide, and I think he would be really good. He's a really good receiver. You could do that too. But for the Saints to really come back in the game, I really would advise the Saints to play Brandon Marshall, and I'm going to stick towards that because they don't play him again. And besides Michael Thomas, they weren't able to do anything again. So to me, sometimes you just need a little change in scenery, maybe, because right now Keith Kirkwood he didn't play bad. Keith Kirkwood was really doing what I thought he was going to do, and people thought he was going to be, nothing, no catches and stuff. And he's put up catches, and he's kind of doing that Des Bryant role that maybe Des Bryant would have came in and do here. Kind of 3 to 5 catches, couple of touchdowns. I mean, he's played 4 games, and he has 2 touchdowns. So that's really good for Keith Kirkwood, but really, I think he's really been better, but besides anybody else, there's really no one there. So even if you want to say Keith Kirkwood's been good, to me, Traquan Smith hasn't really been that good. Dan Arnold, fine, but nothing amazing. Ben Watson, the same there. And Austin Carr, these are just not players that you really want as your number 2, number 3 receivers. You look at the other teams like the Rams, they have Woods, Cooks, they have Gurley, obviously. Their tight end's pretty good, Gerald Everett. They used to have Cooper Kupp. He got hurt. Looking at the Chiefs, they have Watkins, they have Hill, they have Kelsey. All these teams, they have a ton of weapons. And the Saints, they're relying on Drew Brees a lot, Mike Thomas, and Alvin Kamara, and Mark Ingram. But besides those 3, no one's really stepped up. And I think they need someone to step up here. And why not give Brandon Marshall a shot? And this makes, maybe if he comes up, does okay, it just makes the pressure on everyone else a little less. And I think, why not just give it a shot? Because right now, you're putting a ton of pressure on Mike Thomas, a ton of pressure on Drew Brees, and you're also putting a ton of pressure on this running game to be successful. And maybe, if the running game's not good, but it's not like a debacle like it was in the first half, you're still not putting up a ton of points. And then in the second half, you're doing really good against the run, and you're scoring every possession. So to me, there's obviously a correlation there. And also, Brees played much better in the second half, so that also helps. But I think the Saints have to be able to run the ball successfully to score 45 points, 50 points, to put up 35 points, to be in a shootout. That's what they'll have to do. And I think maybe, Drew Brees can do that too, especially if they're able to run screens. But yesterday, they weren't really able to run screens either. I think they only had 1 successful screen, so that's not going to be good either. They need to be able to, obviously, when you're running the ball successfully, Brees is still going to play really good, but he's going to get more opportunities, and I think we're going to need to do that. I think Terron Armstead coming back is going to be really big for the passing game. He's a very good pass blocker, and then Brees can really – and he does trust Bushrod, but he really trusts Armstead. That's the best left tackle in the league until he got hurt. So to me, you got to put him in there, and I think the Saints will do much better once Armstead comes back. Because really, when Armstead was in, this team was – they were scoring 50 a game. Armstead comes out, it's went down a little bit, 30. Obviously they had the 1 clunker. But besides, that game, they're not putting up 40. They're putting up 28, 31 against the Falcons. So to me, I think they just need Armstead back, and they'll be just fine. And I think that they'll be able to run the ball really good. And I think it is vital, but I don't think it's as vital maybe as we saw in this game. But to me, especially if Brees plays really good. Brees had an okay game. Running game's going to be really vital. And I think that's just the key to any team. If your quarterback's only playing average, you're going to need the running game to, have more than negative yards. That's what really is the key there. But the running game in the second half much better, and the team did much better. So I see why many people do think that. But especially if Brees is playing at the top of his game, I don't think we need the rushing game as more. But we need more than negative yards. And I think that's going to be really big for us there. So now on to our final storyline, and that is the play of Eli Apple. So everyone was getting on Eli Apple because he was getting burned in that Cowboys game, and what a turnaround. He played really, really good this week. You got to give it to him. He stopped Chris Godwin, who's a good receiver. Not amazing, but good, to 1 reception on 10 targets. That's a 10% catch rate. That's terrible for Godwin. That's amazing for Eli Apple. Sean Payton challenged him. He said, play up in their faces, get physical with them, and it worked. He only had 1 penalty, which wasn't a good penalty by any means, but only 1 penalty, and he did really good, only 1 for 10, because he got targeted 10 times as a cornerback, or about 10 times. I think there was like a couple of times where it was in zone, but most of the times it was man-to-man, and Eli Apple made a really good play, so you got to give it to Eli Apple. He was playing good the whole game. The Bucs tried to pick on him, really like they tried to pick on Ken Crawley, in week 1, and it was successful. They tried to do it against Eli Apple this week, and it just did not work. So you got to give it to Eli Apple. Really good job there. So now on to our group-by-group recap. So we're going to go through our 7 groups: QB, skill, O-line, D-line, linebackers, and secondary, and then also our special teams coaching category. And then we're just going to grade them, see how they do. So we'll start with the quarterback and Drew Brees. And to me, he gets a B. He played average. To me, looking at his QB rating, looking at his passer rating, looking at yards, touchdowns, turnovers, he just played a very average game. pedestrian. Wasn't an MVP game like maybe we were used to earlier in the year, but this game, he did turn the ball over twice. He did have 2 touchdowns, so you got to give it to him, and a really clutch run where he jumped over the top in the goal line on 4th down. So that was obviously really big there. He didn't do anything awful to me. He just played average. He had some really nice shows in the second half. Really, this was it. First half, he was really bad. I mean, I think it was even worse than the Cowboys game because I don't think he played that bad against the Cowboys. I think he played bad in that first half. It was worse than the Cowboys game. He made a really bad pick. That was just a really bad decision. So, to me, that was bad. Second half, completely different QB. He comes back in here. They say, we're going to try to pound the rock a little more. We're going to use, we're going to feed Mike Thomas. That was obviously a big check for the Saints to get. They really wanted to feed Mike Thomas this week. That's what it just felt like. It seems like it's not like they were going to him in like triple-double coverage, but they set up routes for him to succeed, and it worked. They tried, especially they bunched them all up because they knew the Tampa Bay was going to play zone, and then they just cleared everyone out to get Michael Thomas the right matchup, and it worked. So that was obviously one of the game plannings for the Saints, and it definitely worked out. I think that was in their checklist to win. I think that was one of their not assignments, but something they needed to have happen, and they definitely checked that off the list, and they did a really good job with that. And then also Drew Brees had some really good throws in tight spots to Thomas, really a couple nice throws to Ben Watson, a couple nice throws to Keith Kirkwood. So all in all, good, really amazing second half by him. First, it was MVP level second half. First half just was not. So yeah, you just gotta average him out and say it was average performance because that's really what it was there. Onto our skill position, to me, they also get an average performance with a B. They just, to me, look, they didn't do anything bad, but you saw the guys who stepped up in this game. It was Michael Thomas and Mark Ingram and Alvin Kamara in the second half. Besides that, in the skill position, you can't really say anyone stepped up, did really good, because no one really did. You want to say Keith Kirkwood because he had a couple of catches, fine. Ben Watson had a couple of catches. I guess that's fine too, but to me, it's just not enough. If this team's going to want an A, they got to do more here. I mean, Brees did spread the ball out. I believe he had 9 different receivers. That's a lot of different guys, but overall, they just weren't able to do much out of the receiving game besides Mike Thomas, which obviously is not what you want to see. I mean, just looking at it, Alvin Kamara was second in receptions with 5. Ben Watson had the 3 catches. Keith Kirkwood with 2. Tommy Lewis had a really nice play. It was he had the 1 reception, about 20 yards. He sat right in the zone. It was just a good play by Tommy Lee. And then Traquan Smith, in his only opportunity, dropped it. So to me, look, you don't want to see it from these guys, but to me, look, the good players play good. The players, they kind of need to step up when they need to. Look, it was against the Bucs. They don't need everyone to really step up to win. But against a really good team, against the Rams, they'll need players to step up. And to me, they just didn't this game. So give them a B. Good players stepped up. Bad players didn't. So not bad players, because these aren't bad players, but the players that need to prove themselves didn't. Because, look, all these players, I wouldn't call them bad. They don't make mistake after mistake after mistake. They've been solid, but this game, they were kind of non-existent. Traquan Smith, non-existent. Really, everyone but Michael Thomas was non-existent, and the running game was non-existent until the second half, until the Taysom Hill punt. So that's really what it came down to in this game. Onto our O-line, and I'm going to give them a B+, because in the second half, they played elite. A+, really good job. Not maybe A+, A. Give them an A. They did really good. They controlled the line of scrimmage. Everything you needed them to do, they did. The first half was basically the exact opposite. They did a little better in the passing game, a little better pass blocking. Ryan Ramczyk had a bounce-back game. But, look, Jermon Bushrod is still not up to snuff there. And it's really nothing against Bushrod because he's just a little older on the older side, and athleticism is just going to play a key. And some guys are just have more athleticism, and they're going to beat them. And that kind of happened these last 2 weeks. Next week, I think we'll see Armstead back, and I think we'll see an upgrade in the whole team. I really do, because I think, look, they pay Armstead a lot of money, and there's a reason for that. It's to protect Drew Brees, and it's to, Drew Brees maybe did get a little jittery in there because he knows what if the defensive lineman's more athletic and he's just going to have a really good play against Bushrod. So maybe he can't trust Bushrod as much. I think he does trust Bushrod, but I think he trusts the best offensive lineman in the league a lot more. So to me, you got to look at it, and you got to give them a B+. They didn't play awful, and I think they played above average, especially in the second half. They played above average. But in the first half, it just wasn't up to snuff to give them a very high grade there. And really what this whole unit's been used to before last week. So now we're going to switch over to the defense, onto our D line, and they're going to get an A, another really good performance. They had 4 sacks, Two were by Cam Jordan, who was really good. To me, they stopped the run pretty good. Also, I think Jameis Winston kind of broke contain a little bit, but besides that, nothing really amazing there. I mean, the Bucs did have over 100 yards, but Jameis Winston, only 5 carries, had 47 yards. So really take that out. It was really only 60 yards from Peyton Barber and Jaquiz Rodgers. So to me, good job by the Saints to be able to really stop their running backs. And to me, they got to the quarterback, and I think that's really big there. So now on to our linebackers. To me, you got to give it to this linebacking core. I'm going to give them an A-. Wasn't amazing. They didn't play their best game ever. They gave up 2 touchdowns to Kevin Brate. That's not what you want to see. But overall, they played really good. Just looking at it, they did a really good job to help stopping the run along with the D-line. Also, I forgot to mention on the D-line, Sheldon Rankins again played amazing. You got to give it to him. He had a couple really nice plays. Marcus Davenport had a couple really nice rushes. You really just want to see that. I just wanted to say that. I know I forgot to said it in the when we went over the D-line, but really what is looking at with this linebacking group, they were able to stop really the running game in the second half. A really good job there. And it was really non-existent in the second half. Also in the first half, they were able to make some big stops really in the middle of the field on running backs, and then they were also able to make some nice pass deflections in zone when the Saints played zone. So to me, really good job. Demario Davis just, to me, furthers his Pro Bowl season. He should definitely be making the Pro Bowl. And then also Alex Anzalone had a really good game, and A.J. Klein just having his career year. To me, all the guys, really good job by the linebackers, and that's what gives them an A-. Wasn't their best game all year, but it was a good, solid game from them. On to the secondary, I'm going to give them an A. They played really good this game, and it was capped off by the Marshawn Lattimore interception. I mean, Lattimore played really good the whole game against Mike Evans. They did nothing really the whole game after that first drive, because after the first drive, they didn't play good. But after that, I mean, they played really good. You really can't say anything. Apple played amazing. You got to give it to him. Obviously, we talked about it earlier, but Eli Apple was kind of the key here. So was Lattimore, not getting beat by Mike Evans again. Mike Evans was kind of on and off the field too, but for most of the snaps he was on, and Lattimore was stopping him. And really, you're looking at, they went to Godwin a lot, but it just wasn't working. P.J. Williams adding to another really good week, stopped a really good slot receiver in Adam Humphries, and it was just a really good job by this Saints secondary as a whole. Marcus Williams had a couple of nice plays. He had a big hit. I believe it was on either Adam Humphries or Godwin that it was a really good catch by Humphries. That was one play. And I think there was another play where he hit the ball out to jar it loose. That's a really good job there. And then Von Bell, he's taken the control over Kirk Coleman, and he's having a career year. So you got to give it to Von Bell. Kirk Coleman really just hasn't had a good year. His Saints tenure is getting off to a bad start. But look, he still has time to really improve still into the playoffs. And I think they're probably going to bring him back for another year because he's signed. Maybe they'll cut him, maybe they'll not. But right now it's Von Bell's job to lose, and he's played amazing. So you got to give it to Von Bell. He's had a career year as well. And on to our last group, and that's the special teams and coaching. We combine them together. And to me, both these group A+++++. Taysom Hill, the jack of all trades, with, another heroic play with a blocked punt, and that changed the whole game, as we all know. Complete turning point of the game. So it's all alone. That's going to give you an A+. Will Lutz had a couple of nice kicks. Thomas Morstead, actually pumped the ball a few times, and he did a good job. And then the coaching, to me, Sean Payton got back to his masterful coaching, did a really good job to keep the aggressiveness, keep running the ball. Because, look, in that first half did not look good, but in the second half, he kept running the ball, and they were successful in doing that. So, unlike the Rams did last night, when they got down against the Bears, they really abandoned the run. We stuck with it, and we did a really good job of keeping with it, and it ended up working. We ended up getting over the 100-yard mark for rushing after in the first half having negative. So to me, that's just a good job by Sean Payton sticking with the run game, which not all coaches do. So now onto our Who Dat Nation fan questions. So our first question is from Who Dat 92343, and he asked, what do you make of Taron Armstead not playing on Sunday? And to me, I think this means maybe he wasn't 100%, and I just wanted to give him an extra week. Maybe he would have went if it was for the playoffs, but considering it was against the Bucs and Jermon Bushrod, wasn't playing awful, put him in, don't put him in, see what happens with Bushrod, and that's what they did, and it kind of worked out. Bushrod didn't play awful, played about average. I mean, he's a very serviceable backup. Thank God he's on this team because you don't even know what would be there if it wasn't for Bushrod. So to me, you got to look at next week. I think he should play next week. It's a big game still. Monday night against the Panthers. Panthers desperately need a win, and we desperately need wins too because we have that 1 seed and we got to keep that. So a really big game that day, and with 1 day extra rest, maybe that helps us. But the Panthers really desperately need a win. They're free falling, so I think they're going to be playing desperate. So we have to kind of use that to our advantage. Maybe get a couple of turnovers from Cam Newton, but overall, I think looking to next week, I think kind of the same things. I mean, the Panthers not even that much better than the Bucs here. The Panthers are 6-7, Bucs are 5-8, I believe. So really, I mean, looking at it, how much better are the Panthers? They've really free fallen. But I expect Terrell Armstead to play next week, and I'm hoping that he doesn't even have an injury designation going into the game. I think that would be really big there. Extra day of rest also helps him. So that's really, really good stuff there. On to our next question from Who Dat 412343, and he asks, do you think Manti Te'o should be active for games? And to me, look, I think Te'o's a really good player, and he's kind of got lost this year. To me, he's a really good linebacker, and he should be there on the 53-man roster, But especially the coverages the Saints are playing, he would just sit on the bench the whole game and kind of be a waste of, not a waste of space, but you'd rather have the extra cornerback there than the extra linebacker, especially how much the linebackers have been playing better than the cornerbacks, especially in the past. I think now it's a little more equal, so maybe you want to add him back. To me, he's a really solid run stopper. I mean, pass defense, he is not the best on, but he's not bad at it. You saw last year he's a good player, and I think he could be similar than he was last year. So to me, I really don't have a big preference. I see why they sat him, and I can see why you play him, but to me, I think he could just come in. If we had an injury at the linebacker, let's say one of our linebackers got hurt, I think he'd come in and be a really nice starter. So I think that's really big there. On to our next question from Who Dat 234313, and he asks, what do you think the playoffs will look like? And to me, just looking at the whole playoff picture, after the Rams losing last night, that opens up the number 1 seed for the Saints again. After a lot of people thought this was the Rams are going to now have the 1 seed. The Saints don't look as so good. They lost to Dallas. Really, the Rams put up their clunker against the Bears just the next week. So to me, you got to look at the Rams have not played that good lately either. They've gutted out a lot of victories, but they haven't blown any teams out. But I mean, really for the whole year they haven't blown any teams out. They've just been winning close games. So you got to look at it and say, look, they had their clunker. Now see how they respond. And the Eagles, they're going to be desperate for a win. And I believe it's at Eagles. So that game's a little fishy for them. If they actually lost another game this season, I mean, that opens up the Saints easy for a 1 seed, and it would put the Rams in danger for maybe not even getting that 2 seed. That would be a complete free fall. I don't think they will lose. I think they'll probably win out, so we're going to have to win out. But here's the deal. The Saints if they do all the stuff that they're supposed to do, if they win against Carolina, they could potentially not play another road game the entire year until the neutral game if they got to the Super Bowl. Just think of that. So how dominant the Saints are in the Dome, and they would potentially play 4 straight games there, the 2 to end the regular season, and the 2 in the playoffs if they would get that far with a bye week in the middle. You think about that, and who's beating them? Maybe the Rams get lucky and beat them. Maybe the Bears get their offense together, but in a shootout, they will not be able to stop the Saints in the Dome. So when you're looking at it, this is really, when you look at the games by games, to me, this game in Carolina is huge. And I think the Saints got to go in there with one thought. This could be our last road game the whole season. And then we could be home every game for the Who Dat Nation. And the Who Dat Nation will be that 12th man that they always are. So to me, this game against Carolina could be the biggest of the season. And I think that's what it's coming down to be. Because after that, you play a couple of home games of really the whole regular season. Because then you play the 2 home games, and then you get your bye. If they would win all 3 games, they would definitely get the first round bye, and then they would get the first seed, and then you play your 2 home games in the divisional round and NFC championship game. And that's obviously really vital there. And to me, there's a path there to the Super Bowl that goes way to New Orleans, and it starts week 16. And that's pretty crazy if you actually think about it. They got to take care of business, and that's obviously our number one job is to take care of business in Carolina next week. But I think the team knows that. I think Sean Payton knows that, and I know they're not looking ahead. They're just looking one game at a time. But I think that was an interesting fact. Looking at the rest of the playoffs, I think the Bears will be that 3 seed. I think the Rams will be the 2 seed. I think the Cowboys will be the 4 seed. Cowboys are running away with that division too. So I think everyone's really running away with their divisions, their respective divisions. Then the wild card, still up for grabs. I think the Seahawks, they're looking like they're going to get the 5 seed. And the 6 seed really can go to anyone. Maybe the Vikings. Maybe other teams can literally squeak themselves in there. Like the Packers maybe can squeak themselves in there. Maybe a team like now I'm just blanking on some teams. But maybe a team like the Eagles can sneak in there. But teams like that, maybe even an 8-8 team can get in if some losses happen. I don't think that will happen. I think it will probably be either Vikings, Packers, or the Eagles will make the playoffs there. But I think probably the Vikings will make it there. So if you look at it, there's your 6 teams. That's what I feel is going to be our playoffs. On the AFC, it's a completely different story. I don't think a lot of people want to hear about that. But to me, I think it's going to probably be Chiefs, Patriots, Steelers, Texans, and those last 2 wildcard spots. I mean, the Dolphins just had a really good play against the Patriots. I think they're going to get in. And then also, I think that the Chargers will get in too. And that's a really big game Thursday for the Chargers-Chiefs. So that's a Thursday night game. But all in all, I think that's what the playoff race is really looking like there. So now I think it's time to wrap up this podcast. If you enjoyed this episode and you enjoy this podcast, you should follow us on Twitter at the WhoDatDis, on Instagram at WhoDatDiscussion, on Podomatic at the WhoDatDiscussion, and also subscribe to our YouTube channel at the WhoDatDis, on Google Play at the WhoDatDis, on Spotify and iTunes at the WhoDatDis as well. On those sites, please like, comment, rate us, review us. All that stuff is really helpful just to see how we're doing. I mean, right now, you got to be a really happy Saints fan. Everything went right. Yesterday, and just really good play. And you got to, as I'm going to use the Panthers saying here, you got to keep pounding and beat the Panthers. I think that's what we have to do here. Win a game, a tough game. We'll obviously go over it in our preview episode on Friday, but to me, I'm really liking how the Saints team playing. I think they're going to come back, really, as they bounce back in the second. I think they're going to use that momentum into the next couple games. I think they're going to figure out more ways to run the ball, pass the ball, and do all that good stuff. I mean, just one more thing on the injury notes, just looking at it, Ted Ginn and Josh Laribis could be back, as Sean Payton said today, but I think they're going to be back, so I think that's really big for the playoff run. But the Saints are in the playoffs, clinched. I could finally say not when, now I can say it's happening. The Saints are in the playoffs. I can't say if the Saints are in the playoffs, now it's when. We will be playing at least one game in January. Now, obviously, the next thing on the checklist is to get that bye number 1 seed. And look, if we win out, there's a clear path to get that. So I think that's what we have to do next. I mean, I'm really happy right now. I think everyone who's listening to this should be really happy right now as we won now 11 of 12. So that's obviously really good stuff there. So with all that said, I wanted to say thank you, prove them right, and who dat?